Alright guys, so this is me with my new phone. Not sure what I'm gonna think of this. It's probably gonna show like every little flaw, right? Anyways, today is a very special day for me. This is my son's birthday, my third son's birthday today. Um, Veterans Day, every time it comes around, it's a time for me to talk about my son's birthday. So I have 5 sons, and every year I do this. Every time it's their birthday, I will talk about how the birth was, what we did, everything. And they're like, oh my goodness, Mom, you have to do this every single year. Every birthday you do this. So I do. I mean, it keeps the memories alive, right? And they're memories that nobody else can take away. So um, we had our first son in 93, our second son in 94, so about a year and a half apart. And then I had my third son in 96. So I was just super busy. And we were preparing for our first home birth. And lucky for me, I had a friend who already had home birth. And when she was talking about her home births, I'm like, what do you mean you can have your baby at home, right? I felt the same way with homeschooling. What do you mean you don't send your kid to school? I never heard of such a thing. And I had gone to a church where when I first got saved, the whole church almost homeschooled. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. I never heard of such a thing. So I had a mentor, Connie, who was amazing. And I used to be able to ask her questions. We would take walks, and I would put my 2 little ones. I would put my first one in the stroller. Um, Actually, my second one in the stroller by that time. First, I had one in a stroller, and then the time we were walking together, I had my second one in the stroller. My first one was walking. Then I picked up a double stroller, and I had both of them in the stroller while we walked. And in the winter, when I would walk with her, I would put on hats on them, winter hats, and they looked like twins. That's how much they look alike. All the brothers look alike. So when I would go to the mall in New Hampshire, just a couple times, I don't really like the mall, but people would ask me, are they twins? Are they twins? And I would be like, no, they're a year and a half apart, but that's how close they were. They were super close too. They got along. All my boys got along, every single one of them. So when I was walking with Connie, we would walk and walk and walk, and I got to talk about God. And then I talked to her, like, I don't know, I had this view of like God being distant and just like, he's going to smack you every time you make a mistake. A lot of times we have the view of the relationship we had with our Father, right? Very distant, you're in trouble kind of thing all the time. So we don't see God the right way. So, so we would talk, and I took her parenting, I took MOPS, I took a parenting class, I took Bible studies, I did all this stuff. And then with my second born in 94, they gave me a baby shower at the church, which was pretty big. This lady, Diane, put it on, and it was big. So, so the time I had my third one, we had already heard about home birth, and we were taking our first 2 up to Laconia, and we were listening to Molly Connolly, who's renowned in the home birth circles. She had like 12 kids or something of her own, and she had at least one of them on the kitchen table. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. She didn't make it to the hospital. I think it was like the beginning of her home birthing adventure. So she had one like on her kitchen table. So we were up there taking, parenting classes, and we had the 2 little ones on like a bean bag with books. I would sit them down, and, my kids listened to me. They did listen, or else. So they were sitting on the beanbag quietly, and we brought like Dr. Seuss books for them and stuff to look at quietly in class, because we didn't have childcare with her class. And they would, read quietly during the whole class, and we would talk about home birthing. So I had a ton of questions and I really prepared well. And there is a chance that, something can happen. So I didn't take it lightly. And so I was like, what happens if the baby's cord is around his neck? What do you do? What if this happens? What if that happens? And so as I talked to her, she's like, well, if your baby has the cord around its neck, we're just going to take it off. And I'm like, you're kidding. Because I heard horror stories about this, right? I mean, my first birth, I heard horror stories. I heard my aunt would tell me of people in the hospital screaming in the halls having their kids, right? So I'm like, that's it. I'm having the works. I am going through this as pain free as I can. So I actually had 3 days in the hospital. My placenta was starting to separate, and I think that was partly because of the abortion before. And as it started to separate, there was blood, and then the doctor's like, we are committed tomorrow to delivery. And they upped my Pitocin the next day. I had an epidural. I was on a machine to tell me when to push, and they ended up using forceps, and he had a cute little cone head when he came out. He was just not ready to come out. I was anxious for him to be born, and I wish I had just like had some candy or soda or something to get him moving, because when I went to the doctors, I'm like, yeah, he's not really moving, and they're like, well, we're going to start your delivery early then. So I kind of wish I had waited a little bit on that, but that's okay. So we had him. I had the total works, and then I'm like, the second time, I am going natural. So with my second birth, it was Christmas Eve. I was having back pain, which is a very normal part of my births, having back pain. And then it was Christmas the next morning. I'm like, I think it's time. So he was my Christmas baby. He came out very quickly, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:05. And all I had was a shot of Demulan. That's it, which did nothing. It was like wine, taking the edge off. So the time I had my third one, they came to our trailer. Now, I was in a trailer for 23 years, so now I spend more money, and I'm not afraid to, because I went without for so long. I mean, 23 years of living in a trailer with 5 kids and sacrificing quite a bit. So I don't have a problem with spending more money now. I'm not as materialistic as I was as a teenager. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was brought up, we had money. My mother and father worked, and we were always at the bow and arrow shoots, and we had money. And it just, money was not an issue. I didn't really value money. I didn't think about where money really came from. I worked. We went out, me and my husband, we went out to eat. We went to movies. He brought me, a lot of things. I had a credit card that I had hijacked way up there, and my husband cut it with his axe to pieces. So anyways, so the time we had our third one, we are in a trailer, and I'm having a home birth in a trailer, right? Which was really tight quarters. But when you are committed to something and convicted about things, you can do it. You can put your mind to it. So I was like, I kind of feel like I'm in labor, but I'm not sure. And she's like, you don't know whether you're in labor? And I'm like, I'm not really sure, honestly. I mean, I don't know if they're Braxton Hicks contractions. They could be. They're coming on, but they're not real strong. So my gut was right. I was in labor, but it wasn't really strong, my contractions. And then the back labor kind of disguised the real contractions, right? Because I had major back pain, back labor. So she's like, so we're on our way. Take a sip of wine, and then we will be over there. And I'm like, okay. And I hate wine. It doesn't agree with me. Just shut this door. And so sure enough, I threw it up, and I threw it up right in the crib, which we didn't use. But so they got over there, and I'm still in back labor, and my husband is in the shower with me, and he is, rubbing my back and trying to help me. And so as soon as they got there, he pretty much was born right when they got there. They got in the bedroom and they're like, all right, get this ready, get that ready. Take your nightgown off. This is not the time for modesty. So I was still pretty modest. And she's like, open up. And she's like, push. And it was only, a few pushes and boom, he came right out really fast. But before he did, she's like, wait a minute, we got the cord around the neck. And sure enough, one of my fears came true, right? Because I always thought if the baby had a cord around its neck, it would die. So she's like, hold on. And my husband saw them taking the cord and unwrapping it from around his neck. And he was just probably the easiest birth. Well, I don't know. My second one was pretty easy too. But he came out super fast. We wrapped him in a towel, like a blanket, and she had an old-fashioned scale to weigh the baby. So we did it that way, and I had already prepared everything. You have to buy like your own stuff, your own mattress pad, your own, there's like a list they give you of stuff you're going to need. So, we were using that stuff. And then we kept him a secret for the whole night. We didn't want to tell family. We did not want to tell anybody. We just wanted time alone to bond with him. And my boys were over Connie's house, the lady who mentored me, and she was like, geez, your second son there, he's real restless. So he didn't really want to, he couldn't sleep very well over there. But other than that, they were home the next day and they were enjoying their brother. And so, yeah, so today's a special day for me because those are the memories I have of just staying in bed for, the whole day. Another day, my husband was home with me. My mother had come over and helped out the first day, or the second day because my husband had to work. We didn't really have time off back in the day, I should say. We didn't have maternity leave that I knew of, or it was rare. So me being home actually saved so much money and so much time because I didn't have to worry about, daycare. I didn't have to worry about my kids getting sick all the time. I didn't have to worry about, who they were with or any of that. So, so my son he is 27 today, and that is really hard for me to believe. So I have a 27-year-old, a 29-year-old coming up, 29, and a 30-year-old. And yeah, just hard to believe they're getting older, and it just seems like yesterday that I had them. And this is a channel about abortion, right? About not having an abortion. And motherhood is not talked about enough. We need to emphasize the positive of motherhood. All we hear is like, oh, more diapers, or oh, I can't work, or whatever. But we need to emphasize the joys of motherhood. So he has always been extremely hyper. When he was born, he had the Indian that I have in me, very, very dark skinned, tons of hair, the cutest little baby. They were all like the best looking babies, I swear. And wicked, wicked cute. And I had him in a car seat at one point as he was getting older. And he would rock that seat and he would try to get out. And I think back at that and I'm like, geez, only if I knew. He was extremely hyper. The doctors were like, at 6 years old, okay, we're going to put him on, he's hyperactive, we're going to put him on medication. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not. You are not putting him on medication for being hyper. And so I had switched doctors. I had to always defend myself with the doctors, always. They always want to find something wrong, right? So, so watching him grow up and seeing how he is now, he backpacked across the country. He had a ton of energy. And so I miss him. I have not heard from him in a little while. And last I talked to him, he was like, oh, I'm so glad you're in Colorado. You're traveling finally, Mom. You're finally getting around. And so I told him to come on over. So yeah, so I am thinking a lot about my son today. No regrets, even living in a trailer going to food pantries. My husband couldn't have done it without me. I mean, I was the one bringing in the resources. I brought in food pantries. I brought in Medicaid. I brought in help with, everything from the electric bill to rent to going to the city of welfare department, bringing in help with utilities. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars so that my husband and I could stay home and enjoy our kids. So, that's kind of what happened there. And even now, as I'm dealing with court stuff, I'm going to be putting in all the help I got here too, which again, thousands of dollars of help, which if you want kids, you can do it. My last one is going to be 18 this month, and then that is going to free me to work even more. So, that's the plan. And, I did find some work. So I'm going to be doing some stuff today to help a friend. And then, I have other people calling me. I usually have like two or three, once I get on the ball, two or three people calling me and saying, hey, we have work. And then I have to figure out which one is going to work for me. I haven't really had to work, but now I'm shifting that energy that I had put all into my family and shifting it to work. So that's a big key. That's a big part of this. Like, I didn't really have to keep a job before. And now I'm like, okay, you figured out, your weak points with work, your strong points. You get offended sometimes too easily. Now you need to go deeper, like I talked about in my video yesterday, go deeper. And now, you pretty much do have to work with a husband who left you. He just left for no reason. So, on the positive note, like I said, I would not have traded in any of what I went through to have my kids. And that's how important motherhood is.